Hi everyone, it's TTL back with another video for you, and yes, that is an X570 Aorus Master on the table. Now it is on the table, but because of a rather strict NDA, there's only a certain amount of stuff that I can talk to you about. So I can't show you any performance, you are not going to see a CPU today, let alone actually have the board powered up with anything. But we are going to show you as much as we possibly can do within the realms of the NDA. The full review will be live on this channel on the 7th of July with the new CPUs and possibly with some Navi goodness too. But for now, you're just going to have to put up with what I'm allowed to show you at the moment. Before anyone asks, this actually came from a trade show, and I think it's the last one they've got that's still working, and I've got it. So I have already taken the box out, but I do want to show you in the box because obviously there's only a certain amount of stuff we can talk about today. So you get a sticker pack, passport kind of logo covery thing, some stuff for your fans, and you also get some handy cable tabs. Now these you wrap around the cable so that you can indicate what each one is, so you might not disconnect one by mistake. You then get your manual, your CD, and then a multilingual installation guide. If we were to open the actual main part of the box, there is an awful lot of other stuff going on in here. So you've got some Velcro tabs. These are amazingly handy around the back of the board when you're trying to cable tidy, but you actually want to be able to get them on and off rather than just putting a zip tie on. You've got your wireless dongle here, which you will see the connections for on the back of the board in a sec. This is an addressable RGB cable extension. You can tell it's addressable because it's only got the 3 pins and the gap rather than the 4 pins. Then you have got, this is the noise connector. I see. I was looking at the board just a second ago. When I talked to you about the noise connector in a minute, you'll know what this is, and this is what it must be, because it's like a little microphone on the end. The camera is going to go spaz if I zoom you in too much. But there is, this is going to be fun to find out about when we actually do the full main review. Then this is a normal, I say normal, but it's not because it's an RGBW extension. So it's got an extra channel on it so that you can have a dedicated white or for some of the cable connections, UV. Cable Mod sell the RGBW and RGB UV strips if you are interested. Then we've got a thermal probe. It's quite a long one as well, but it's got the old 2-prong thing, and you can put that on the top of a CPU heatsink if you want, or a certain part of the motherboard, or underneath the backplate of your GPU, or up on the VRM end. You know, you can put it wherever you want. And then the good thing about it is, here's another one, is then you can actually use the software in the OS to track that sensor as well. You've then got a quick connect for the I/O. And by the I/O, I mean like your switches, your LEDs and all that sort of thing for the case. And then you get 4 plain black SATA connections. There's 2 straight and 2 90 degrees. So that is our first look at the board itself. Now don't forget what I said. I am under an NDA and we are skirting the kind of realms of what we're allowed to show you with this. And I'm taking the text in the NDA in a very literal sense. So I'm hoping that this is going to be able to stay up and you can do it. But if not, share the bejesus out of it so that you can watch it while you can. But what I will do is I'm going to give you a good look around the board because I can obviously not show you any performance or anything like that. So for now, we can have a good down and dirty look at everything in and around it. So I'm going to move the camera around a lot. I don't know whether we're going to get nice pans or anything like that, but because of I can zoom in quite a bit, you can pause and you're going to be able to get some decent detail on the actual board, and you may even spot stuff that I've missed in the rush to try and get you this content as quick as I possibly could do. Yes, it is at a funny angle, but you'll see why as we zoom in. So you do get 2 8-pins at the top, but what you can see is there is a 4-pin PWM header just to the left-hand side of the heatsink. But then when we pan across, you can you get a good glimpse of the heatsink. Now the other reason why I wanted to give you a good glimpse of that heatsink is it's a proper finned aluminium heatsink. It's not just a lump of metal going on there. There are many fins, and what those many fins do, and they go right the way down here as well, is they actually give you an amazing amount of surface area, which makes our lives much easier when it comes to cooling, because more surface area, more cooling. This is the way the old school fins used to be, and admittedly they were copper, and they have at least been anodized black, but it means that the cooling performance of those fins theoretically should be amazing. One of the things I can say is it is actually a 14 phase board as well. You can see there's a lot of chokes and caps going on there. And if I give you a look that way, yes, it's in my hand, but you can see there's a fair old whack. And also, looking in, you can see that it's direct contact as well. And they do say about that, was it up there or up there? I can't remember, but they do say about direct, oh yeah, there it is, direct touch. There we go. Back on the thing, if we move across, you get another 2 fan headers. You've got the CPU optional and the CPU fan there. But then you can see that we've got readout points for a multimeter. So this has already given us an indication this might be a good board for the overclockers. This little connector here, that is the noise connector for the noise sensor. That was, I think, that little, it looked like a little microphone that I showed you briefly before with the red and black cable. So we've got that there. Then just to the right of all of the pickups here, you can see we've got the RGB, and then we have the addressable RGB there. Little bit further down, what we can see is we've got a power and a reset switch, and then we've got a couple of BIOS switches. So the one to the left is the dual BIOS switch, where you can actually choose between whether you're running 1 BIOS or 2 BIOS. Then you have the other switch to the right, which actually chooses whether you're using the first BIOS or the second BIOS. I don't know why you'd want to be able to do that. It's a question I'm definitely going to be asking Gigabyte, but you know, that's what they are for. And I did look it up in the manual as well, because even I found it a little bit confusing. I'm hoping, because of the quality of the camera and the fact we can zoom in so much as well, you are going to be able to pause and get some really, really good ideas on what is actually going on with this board. Now, we've obviously got the PCI poster down here in the bottom corner, but you can see the bracing around the DIMM slots to the left. And I'm just going to zoom down I'm going to go down slowly so that you can get an idea of all the componentry that's going on, but also you're going to be able to get an idea of where the fan headers are, because we've just found another 3. But you'll also be able to read things on the board. So for argument's sake here, you can see that you've got A1, A2, B1, B2. So that means when you install DIMM on the board, you would need to install it in A1 and B1, because you want A and B, because you don't want 2 A's. Then we come down a little bit more. We'll stay on this side. You can see here, just here, these are the lights when you're posting the board. So you'll see it going through the different stages. So you'll see the VGA stage, the boot stage, and yeah, you can see the other one. So that's all there for you. Now, this I will come out a little bit for, because this is the heatsink. There is a fan underneath it. We do know that we've got PCI Express 4 going to be available with the CPU, so the boards are ready for it. Maybe because I don't know whether it's going straight to the CPU or whether, you know, it's going through the chipset. It's questions again that need to be asked, but it's also questions that I can't really answer until we do the main review and talk about all the performance and all of that sort of stuff. We can see here that there is another voltage pickup point, or is it a bit of missing hardware? Let me try and get the camera to give you a better look. There we go. It could be a connector that may have been there. I think it might have been another SATA connector. It might be available on one of the other boards, because you can see there are 6 below it. So right in the bottom right hand corner, you can see where you put your power, your reset switches, your LEDs and all that sort of stuff above it. The 2 little prongs that are above it just there would be the jumpers for the clear CMOS. You can actually see the text just up here as well. And the fact I've got you zoomed in just helps you get a better idea for it. You can see that you've got 2 internal USB 3s. You've got another sys fan. You can see that's sys fan 6. then you can see that you've got two internal USB 2s as well, always handy for those of you that may plug your power supply in or your AIO in for extra monitoring. And then when we come across a little bit further, you can see we've got another addressable RGB and a normal RGB header. Then you've also got a front panel audio connector there as well. When we do come up, you can see some Japanese capacitors there, but you can also see those 4 very high grade audio capacitors as well. Now, this is something that I've not read in too much about because it's so early. Gigabyte literally haven't even sent me any official PDF stuff to talk about the specifics about what's underneath or anything yet. So we're just going to have to speculate that they're going to make a really nice, decent onboard audio. Then when we pan out a little bit, what you can see is we've got 3 onboard M.2s. We've got 210mm long ones here, and then there's a shorter 80 just down at the bottom. Again, I can't really talk to you too much about how they're wired into the chipset or whether it's the CPU or anything like that, because that's a little bit too close to the NDA for me to want to risk too much about. When we do have a look round the back though, you can see that we've got a CMOS clear here, and then you've also got the D-Flash Plus. I'm going to assume that's like a very quick onboard BIOS kind of updating thing, a bit like some other companies use. I'm struggling to not call it by what they would call it. You can see that you've got the BIOS header here, and essentially it's so you don't necessarily need a CPU in the board to be able to update the BIOS. It does make life a lot easier. Anyway, 4 USB 2s. Then we've also got the USB 3s here. One of them is the BIOS USB, but you can obviously still use that. USB 3 0.1 Gen 2, you can see you've got an A and a C, and you've got USB 3.1 Gen 2 here as well. These are both, oh they're not, look, that one is gigabit, but then there's a 2.5 gigabit internal LAN header. Now I do have to be a kind of a bearer of bad news, that's not going to make your internet quicker, but if you've got an internal home networking, that's going to work with that. Maybe you've got higher speed cables, a quicker switch, or maybe even a router with 2.5 gig available. Then you might be able to connect to other machines on your network with a little bit more speed. Then you've got gold-plated connectors for the audio at the back, which kind of does give you a hint towards the capacitors, those red caps that I spoke to you about before. Around the back of the board, massive backplate. Can't really see too much of whether it's in direct contact with anything yet. I will strip it and take it apart at a later date. So I've saved this part for the end because it's one of the most difficult grey areas that we've got, and that is the lighting, because I'm not allowed to power the board up. But it's not got a CPU in it, and I've technically not powered the board up, I've just powered the LEDs up. Now this is just in a demo mode. It's literally just a power there and it will just cycle, but it shows us where the lighting is. And it's actually quite light on this board, if I'm honest. I was genuinely expecting a bit more, but for those of you that don't like RGB, there's not a great deal on it, and it is incredibly subtle. If you had any other kind of lighting going on inside the case, then it probably wouldn't show very much. But I do think lighting in and around the heatsink here, if I was to just turn it on to like a white mode, I think it could be a really nice subtle effect. And it does catch that Aorus logo quite nicely. And that's where I'm going to finish this, because this is the first of my X570 previews. There will be more on the channel, but don't forget the main NDA is the 7th of July 2019. So if you're watching this and the NDA has passed, the full review for this board with all the performance and the different CPUs and all of that sort of stuff, and maybe even some Navi goodness, will be live if you want to go and take a look. Thanks for watching. This has been the tiniest one. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you like the content. There will be much, much more. Thank Lord for AMD launches.